Romans 12 is one of those chapters that cuts straight through you. It doesn't matter if someone has read the entire Bible or is just starting now. When they reach this chapter, something shifts. It's as if Paul holds up a mirror, revealing not only who we are, but who we can become. This chapter isn't filled with distant theories. It delivers practical, deep, and almost uncomfortable truths because of how real they are. Anyone who chooses to walk through these words begins to see life with a new kind of clarity, as if finally discovering the manual no one ever taught earlier. And before we dive into this roadmap of transformation, one that's about to unlock areas of your life you may not even realize are stuck, do something important. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It's incredible to see how Romans 12 reaches people in so many different places, and now I want to know how far this message is traveling as you join this journey. The first lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is that offering the body as a living sacrifice means treating every detail of life as a continuous act of dedication. It's not about grand gestures, but about the intention behind what we do every day. When someone realizes that even simple actions can be expressions of devotion, the ordinary gains a new shine. Routine stops being automatic and starts carrying meaning, and that completely changes the way a person sees their own path. This offering is revealed in practical decisions: caring for the body, maintaining healthy habits, and protecting emotional energy. Small choices: sleeping better, taking at least a 10-minute walk, or reading something that strengthens the spirit, make a difference. Books like The Power of Hope or The Art of Serenity reinforce this inner posture. It's the kind of care that communicates respect for the life God has given. And that posture ends up shaping character. This understanding also helps a person see what needs to stay and what needs to be adjusted. It's like organizing a cluttered drawer. Once the excess is removed, everything becomes lighter and more functional. Offering the body is, in a sense, this daily organization of life. What no longer serves is released, and what strengthens is kept intentionally. This avoids unnecessary drain, and it keeps each decision aligned with deeper values. This way of living develops when someone chooses simple rituals that reinforce purpose. It might be expressing gratitude before starting the day, reading a psalm during a lunch break, or practicing a weekly act of kindness. Gestures like these create a different internal rhythm. The mind becomes more aware, the heart more at ease, and life begins reflecting more balance. Small practices build great transformations over time. When this offering becomes part of one's lifestyle, the person starts functioning like a tuned instrument, always ready to produce something good. It's not about constantly being active, but about being available when needed. This readiness is born from self-care, proper rest, and internal organization. The more tuned the life is, the more beautifully it sounds, and this changes the way challenges are faced. This holistic care recognizes that body, mind, and emotions walk together. A neglected body cannot sustain a healthy life, just as an exhausted mind cannot sustain wise decisions. Simple practices like stretching, mindful pauses, or breathing exercises help maintain balance. It's a type of care that strengthens inside and out, and it prepares the ground for deeper transformation. Now, the second lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is the need to be transformed by the renewing of the mind. Here, the focus turns to the ideas, beliefs, and thoughts that shape behavior. Renewing the mind means replacing old limiting patterns with perceptions that strengthen. Just as a house needs maintenance, the thought life needs continual review. This prevents someone from repeating draining cycles, and it opens space for new possibilities. When the mind is renewed, the person begins to discern what is beneficial and what simply takes up space. Practices like recording negative thoughts, studying biblical texts that bring clarity, or reading books such as Winning the Battle of the Mind help in this process. Little by little, thinking becomes more stable and balanced. The person reacts less and responds more, and everything around them starts to change as well. This inner transformation changes the way life is approached. Challenges no longer look like monsters. They become opportunities for growth. A renewed mind sees beyond the present moment, understanding paths that once seemed confusing. And it's precisely this union, a life offered and a mind renewed, that prepares the person to move forward into the next lessons that the chapter will gently reveal ahead. The third lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is the importance of thinking about oneself with balanced and humble judgment. This kind of humility does not diminish anyone. In fact, it protects from unnecessary comparisons, self-sabotage, and arrogance. When a person understands their worth without placing themselves above others, they begin to act with greater clarity and maturity. This mental balance avoids exaggerations, extremes, and illusions about who they are. And it creates fertile ground for healthy relationships. This understanding of humility helps a person look at themselves with honesty, recognizing strengths and limitations in equal measure. It's not about underestimating talents, but seeing them with responsibility. It's like assessing your pace before running a marathon. Knowing your limit protects you from unnecessary frustration. A simple practice is writing down 3 strengths and 3 areas to improve each week. This creates realistic perspective, and it strengthens self-awareness. This lesson also reminds us that everyone has their own process, and comparisons only drain energy. When someone understands this, they begin to celebrate their progress instead of punishing themselves for what is still missing. Small victories gain value and heavy pressure fades. Books like Emotional Intelligence or The Gifts of Imperfection help a lot in building this inner balance. Humility becomes an ally for developing wisdom, and it opens space for genuine connections. With this balance, the person becomes more careful in evaluating intentions and motivations. Humility acts almost like a filter that prevents rash decisions or ego-driven reactions. Before speaking, they think. Before acting, they consider the impact. This posture creates lighter environments around them, and it makes communication far clearer. It's a kind of maturity that grows over time and transforms relationships. The fourth lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is the proper use of spiritual gifts to build up the body of Christ. Every person carries abilities that are not random but tools given to serve. These gifts gain meaning when they are used to strengthen others, not for self-promotion. It's like parts of the same body. Each has a function, but they must work together. When that happens, the community grows in a healthy way. Recognizing these gifts requires observation and practice. The person can ask themselves, what do I naturally do well? Where do my efforts produce real impact? Often others notice our gifts before we do, which is why listening to feedback is so valuable. If someone is good at teaching, they can start by leading small studies. If they are gifted in encouragement, they can spend time supporting those struggling. A gift grows when it is used, and it strengthens through service. This lesson also reminds us that no gift is superior to another. Diversity is what keeps everything functioning. A person who serves with excellence is just as essential as one who teaches or leads. This removes the pressure of being special and shifts the focus to being useful. Actions like volunteering in social projects, supporting community initiatives, or even creating safe spaces for conversation help exercise these gifts. And they strengthen relationships. Everything grows when each one does their part. Using these gifts correctly also develops a sense of responsibility. The person understands they received something to multiply, not to hide. This motivates them to prepare themselves, studying, learning, improving. Online courses, personal development books, or even specific training increase the impact of these gifts. The more someone develops themselves, the more prepared they are to serve. And service becomes an expression of character. When humility and gifts come together, a rare kind of maturity is formed. One that serves without seeking recognition and does good without needing applause. It is there that spiritual life becomes practical, alive, and concrete. And this combination prepares the person for the next part of the chapter, where true love begins to take shape in an even deeper way. The fifth lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to love without hypocrisy. This kind of love doesn't depend on convenience or appearance. It arises from sincere attitudes that don't need masks. When a person learns to love honestly, relationships stop being performances and become presence. True love doesn't exaggerate, manipulate, or pretend. It expresses itself with simplicity, transparency, and consistency. And that creates real connections. This sincere love shows up in simple gestures, listening to someone without checking the phone, giving real attention, offering help without expecting anything in return. These attitudes matter more than long speeches. Loving without hypocrisy is practiced in the details. In a kind word and forgiveness offered in a difficult conversation handled with respect. Books like The 5 Love Languages help people understand practical ways to demonstrate care. And they strengthen bonds in deep ways. When this love is lived out, a person learns to avoid relationships built only on appearance. Because when love is genuine, it welcomes, corrects, and builds. Sometimes loving without hypocrisy means saying no when necessary or establishing healthy boundaries. Love is not allowing abuse. Love is protecting one's own dignity and the dignity of others. This kind of sincerity generates trust, and trust sustains lasting relationships. The fifth lesson also shows that true love carries a quiet strength. It doesn't fight for attention or try to prove anything. It acts. A person who loves like this becomes a source of peace because their attitudes are predictable, consistent, and stable. This type of love inspires others to do the same. And when that happens, the environment around them transforms. It's a change that begins inside and expands outward. The sixth lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to cling to what is good and reject what is evil. This is an active posture. It's not just avoiding what is harmful, but intentionally choosing what is good, uplifting, and life-giving. The person starts paying closer attention to what they consume, what they speak, and the choices they make. And this healthy vigilance protects them from confusing paths. It's a discipline learned one day at a time. Clinging to what is good also means identifying what strengthens the spirit and repeating it often. It might be joining a Bible study group, listening to messages that elevate the mind, or replacing toxic content with inspiring reading. Choosing films, music, and conversations that nourish the heart. These small swaps change the internal environment, and that internal environment influences every other area of life. Rejecting evil, on the other hand, requires courage. Sometimes it means breaking cycles, relationships, or habits that drain energy or pull someone off purpose. It's saying, I no longer accept this for my life. This isn't intolerance, it's self-protection. When a person learns to firmly reject what is harmful, they create boundaries that protect their peace. And those boundaries become essential for emotional health. This commitment to choosing good also strengthens integrity. The person begins thinking before acting, asking themselves, does this honor my values? Does this bring me closer to who I want to become? These questions work like an internal compass. They illuminate important decisions, even those made on impulse, and they shape character over time. The result is emotional and spiritual stability. When true love joins the commitment to choose good and reject evil, a life emerges that inspires without needing many words. Actions speak for themselves, and this inner transformation prepares the ground for the next lessons, where service, zeal, and perseverance begin to play an even more significant role. The seventh lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to serve with dedication and spiritual fervor. This means serving with genuine enthusiasm, not out of obligation, nor with that autopilot attitude that does everything mechanically. It is an inner disposition that puts energy, heart, and excellence into what one does. When a person serves like this, service stops being a burden and becomes purpose, and purpose transforms even the simplest tasks. Serving with dedication doesn't require big platforms. It begins with small opportunities in daily life. It might be patiently helping a coworker, supporting a community project, or giving 1 hour a week to a cause that makes a difference. Simple actions, visiting an elderly person, helping a student with homework, or organizing donations, also express this fervor. What matters is serving with sincerity, and that sincerity ignites something both inside and around us. This spiritual fervor also involves doing one's best even when no one is watching. It is the attitude of someone who understands that excellence does not depend on an audience. Just as a gardener tends to each plant with the same care, the dedicated person serves with attention to detail. This creates a standard of quality that inspires others. And it inspires because it comes from within, not from external pressure. It is a flame that generates movement. Dedication and service also strengthens character. A person learns discipline, patience, and consistency. They learn to handle frustration without abandoning their purpose. Those who serve with fervor understand that real impact is not always immediate. Sometimes the results appear months or years later. But consistency builds. And this building process shapes a maturity that few other experiences provide. The 8th lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to persevere in prayer and remain joyful in hope. Constant prayer doesn't mean spending the whole day on one's knees. It means keeping the heart awake and connected to God while living daily life. It's turning worries into conversations, decisions into requests for wisdom, and gratitude into simple words throughout the day. This practice creates emotional stability, and it gives strength to continue. Persevering in prayer also helps maintain focus when life becomes heavy. Instead of being consumed by anxiety, a person learns to let go, breathe, and step back enough to regain clarity. Small habits, like praying before important decisions, reading a proverb in the morning, or writing down prayers and answers in a journal, strengthen this discipline, and they make faith practical. It's like carrying an internal anchor that keeps the heart from drifting. Remaining joyful in hope means choosing to believe even when circumstances have not yet changed. It is a calm, unforced joy that grows from trusting that something good may be forming in the unseen. Hope doesn't ignore reality, it illuminates it. Books like Living Hope or The Journey of Faith help strengthen this perspective, and they make difficult days lighter. It's a joy that sustains. This hopeful joy also reminds us to look toward the future with courage. A person begins to expect the best, not because everything is perfect, but because they've learned to see possibilities. When hope grows, fear shrinks, and this directly affects how someone acts, decides, and relates. Joy becomes fuel, and that fuel keeps the journey steady even on uneven ground. When dedication and service joins perseverance in prayer, a life emerges that moves with purpose and maturity. Fervor and hope work together, strengthening the inner life, while actions transform the outer world. And in this balance, the next lessons arise, where generosity, hospitality, and empathy become even more visible in the Christian way of living. The 9th lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to exercise generosity toward those in need. This generosity isn't limited to money. It includes time, attention, listening, presence, and even skills that can lighten someone's burden. Being generous means seeing others with sensitivity and acting before they have to ask. When someone adopts this posture, they start noticing opportunities to help everywhere. And each small gesture becomes an instrument of transformation. Practical generosity shows up in simple actions like preparing a meal for someone going through a difficult moment, donating clothes in good condition, or setting aside part of the monthly budget to support a trustworthy organization. It can also mean spending a few minutes listening to someone in distress or helping a friend with a problem they can't handle alone. These attitudes prove that faith is more than words, it's action, and actions like these strengthen entire communities. This generous spirit also teaches us to break the scarcity mindset, the idea that if I give, I'll be left with nothing. The truth is that generosity opens space for new opportunities, connections, and perspectives. Generous people often discover that the more they share, the richer they become in experiences, relationships, and inner growth. Generosity never impoverishes, it teaches abundance. and it shapes emotionally mature and spiritually stable individuals. The ninth lesson also shows us that generosity is a daily choice. It doesn't depend on having much, but on doing the best with what one has. If someone cannot give something material, they can give encouraging words, time to teach a child, or skills to help social projects. The importance lies not in the size of the gesture, but in the intention behind it. When this becomes a lifestyle, the heart learns to open, and an open heart transforms environments. The 10th lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to practice hospitality and empathy. Hospitality is not only receiving people at home, it is making room in the heart, the schedule, and the attention. It is seeing others with sensitivity, perceiving their pain and their joy. It is welcoming, even when life is busy. This kind of hospitality builds bridges, and bridges bring together people who might never have connected otherwise. Practicing hospitality can be as simple as inviting someone for coffee, offering a ride to someone who always walks alone, or creating a space where people feel safe to speak. Small gatherings, sincere conversations, and welcoming attitudes heal silent wounds. Empathy also appears when someone chooses to understand another's perspective before responding. This generates respect, and respect sustains deep relationships. This lesson also shows that hospitality and empathy walk together. While hospitality opens the door, empathy opens the heart. And when these two elements unite, relationships become lighter, more human, and more transformative. Books like Hospitality as a Way of Life or The Power of Empathy help deepen this understanding. But above all, practice is what shapes character. The more a person welcomes, the more sensitive they become. Practicing empathy also requires intention. It means listening without interrupting, validating feelings, and recognizing that everyone carries invisible battles. Often a simple "I'm here" means more than any elaborate advice. Empathy strengthens friendships, improves family relationships, and even changes how we interact with strangers. It is an exercise that expands one's vision of life, and it reveals emotional maturity. When generosity, hospitality, and empathy come together, an atmosphere of care begins to form around the person. They become known as someone who welcomes, helps, listens, and brings transformation. And this presence alone becomes a living testimony, a perfect preparation for the next stage, where pursuing peace and overcoming evil with good shine even more deeply. The 11th lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to seek to live at peace with everyone. This doesn't mean agreeing with everything or erasing oneself, but choosing a posture that avoids unnecessary conflicts and protects what truly matters. Peace is built through daily choices: breathing before responding, listening before concluding, understanding before reacting. When a person pursues peace, they create safe environments around them, and those environments strengthen relationships. Living in peace requires the maturity to choose battles wisely. Not every argument deserves energy, and not every provocation deserves a response. Sometimes the wisest attitude is simply refusing to play the game of offense. Other times it is necessary to have a gentle conversation to fix what has gone crooked. Strategies like practicing nonviolent communication, studying emotional intelligence, or training self-control help greatly in this process, and they make relationships lighter. This pursuit of peace also teaches us to break cycles of hostility. A calm response can disarm an attack. A small apology can release years of tension. The person who chooses peace becomes a point of balance wherever they go. Not someone who avoids problems, but someone who solves them without increasing the damage. And this earns respect, because well-cultivated peace is inspiring. The 11th lesson also shows that living at peace requires wisdom to accept limits. Not everyone will understand, value, or reciprocate this posture. Even so, the person continues doing their part, because inner peace doesn't depend on someone else's reaction, but on the personal decision to act with serenity. And this serenity protects the mind from unnecessary wear. It is a form of self-love, and it prepares the heart for greater challenges. The 12th lesson we learn from Romans chapter 12 is to overcome evil with good. This principle is powerful because it goes against natural instinct. Instead of responding to offense with offense or harm with harm, it teaches us to interrupt cycles through goodness. Not naive goodness, but strategic, conscious, firm goodness. When good enters the scene, evil loses strength, and difficult situations gain new possibilities for resolution. Overcoming evil with good doesn't mean being passive. On the contrary, it is an active attitude that requires courage to do what most people would not. It might mean responding to criticism politely, even when the desire is to retaliate. It might mean helping someone who once disappointed us if it is safe and wise, or choosing to act with integrity even when no one is watching. These gestures have deep impact, and they change stories. This principle also teaches that goodness is a silent yet incredibly powerful weapon. It breaks suspicion, reduces tension, and opens doors that were previously closed. A single kind action can prevent larger conflicts and often restore fragile relationships. When a person learns to respond with gentleness, they do not lose strength, they gain wisdom, and that wisdom transforms how they move through life. Overcoming evil with good also transforms the heart of the one who practices it. The person stops being a hostage of impulsive emotions and begins acting with purpose. They understand that evil does not define their behavior, and that every choice is an opportunity to build something better. Gradually, this posture shapes a solid, balanced, admired character, a character that attracts trust and respect, and leaves positive marks wherever it goes. When the pursuit of peace joins the power of overcoming evil with good, a lifestyle emerges that breaks old patterns and brightens environments. Actions stop being reactions and become conscious choices. And this transformation opens the way for even deeper understanding. Something that becomes clearer when we weave together the full message of the chapter. After walking through each lesson in Romans chapter 12, it becomes clear that living a practical faith transforms not only what we do, but who we become. Now that you've understood these principles, the question is, what will you do with them? Will you let them sit as stored knowledge, or will you allow them to shape your decisions, your relationships, and your daily life? Because in the end, real change begins when we apply small actions day by day. And those actions build a future completely different from the one you have now. So let me ask you, which of these lessons will you apply first? What can you start changing today, even if it's just a small step? If this content stirred something in you, opened your eyes, or helped you understand what was missing, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep walking with us on this journey of spiritual and personal growth. And before you leave, watch the video that's appearing on your screen right now. It will take everything you learned here even deeper.